You suffer because your mind is operating at multiple points at the same time. It's not depression, it's not chronic anxiety, it's operational waste. Your mental factory has 3 assembly lines running simultaneously, none delivering finished product. Henry Ford solved this in factories in 1913. You're going to solve this in your head in the next 15 minutes. Here's the real problem. You wake up thinking about the work project. At breakfast, you're reviewing yesterday's argument. At work, you're calculating the credit card bill. At lunch, you're already anticipating the afternoon meeting. At night, you're planning next week while scrolling through social media. Your mind never completed a cycle. It's in 6 places, delivering 0. This isn't efficient multitasking. It's pure waste. Every interrupted thought is material stopped on the conveyor. Every overlapping worry is accumulated bottleneck. The cost? You don't produce clarity. You don't produce decision. You produce anxiety, which is the natural byproduct of an inefficient system. Let me be more specific. Most people wake up and immediately check their phone. 7 different inputs in the first 3 minutes. Messages, emails, news, social media, calendar, weather, stocks. Your mind hasn't even defined what the priority cycle is for the day, and you've already scattered it across 7 incomplete loops. By 9 a.m., you've started 12 mental processes. By noon, you've completed 0. By 6 p.m., you're exhausted. But you can't point to one single finished cycle. You mistake activity for productivity. Ford identified this same error in Highland Park factory in 1910. Workers were busy, moving constantly, handling multiple car parts simultaneously. But assembly time per vehicle was 12 hours and 28 minutes. Why? Because no one completed one full cycle before starting another. Busy doesn't mean efficient. Movement doesn't mean progress. The wellness industry wants you to believe the problem is emotional, that you need more meditation, more therapy, more self-knowledge, more journaling, more affirmations, more breath work. Lie. The problem is structural. Your mind is allocated wrong. Ford didn't ask workers if they felt motivated. He didn't run employee engagement surveys. He didn't bring in motivational speakers. He reorganized the flow, eliminated unnecessary movement, collocated tools, sequenced tasks, put each man on one task, one complete cycle, 0 overlap. The result? Assembly time dropped from 12 hours to 93 minutes, not because workers tried harder, because the system stopped wasting their capacity. Paria key. You don't have a deep psychological problem. You have an attention management problem, and attention management is protocol, not feeling. Rule: 1 mind, 1 point of attention, 1 complete cycle. This means you don't divide attention between past, present, and future at the same time. You don't run parallel worry streams. You don't keep 6 browser tabs open in your consciousness. You choose 1 point, execute until the end, and only then move to the next. Your mind is not a parallel processor. It's a sequential assembly line. The human brain can hold approximately 7 items in working memory, but can only deeply process 1 complex task at a time. When you try to run 3 lines simultaneously, you don't get 3 times the output. You get 0 times 3. All lines freeze. When you run 1 line until completing the cycle, you deliver result. Result generates clarity. Clarity eliminates suffering. Rule: 1 mind, 1 point of attention, 1 complete cycle. Memorize this. Here's what most people miss. Suffering isn't caused by the problem itself. Suffering is caused by the open loop. An unresolved conflict doesn't hurt because it's difficult. It hurts because your mind keeps circling back to it while you're trying to do other things. A financial problem doesn't generate anxiety because of the money. It generates anxiety because you've thought about it 17 times today but taken 0 action to close the cycle. Ford understood this at the systemic level. Incomplete work in progress is the enemy of throughput. Every car sitting half-assembled on the factory floor is capital locked, space occupied, and flow disrupted. Every unfinished thought loop in your mind is the same. Capital locked, space occupied, flow disrupted. You don't need to solve every problem today. You need to close 1 cycle completely. Here's the protocol. 5 steps now, non-negotiable. Step 1, identify the active cycle. Every morning, before opening your phone, before checking anything, before engaging with any external input, you sit with a blank page and you write one line. Today, my mind completes this cycle, and you fill in something specific. One cycle, not 3, not 5, 1. It can be finish the client proposal. It can be resolve the insurance claim. It can be have the boundary conversation with your business partner. It can be complete the code review for Module 3. One cycle. The cycle must be completable within the day. If it's too large, you're not identifying a cycle, you're identifying a project. Break it down. Ford didn't say, build a car. He said, install the engine block, specific, completable, measurable. Step 2. Block external and internal interruptions. During cycle execution, you don't answer notifications, you don't check email, you don't browse, you don't allow your mind to jump to another point. This requires environmental control and mental discipline. Environmental control: phone in another room, email closed, door shut, headphones on if needed. Mental discipline: when lateral thought emerges, and it will, you don't engage. The thought will be something like, I should also call the accountant, or what if the meeting goes badly, or I need to remember to buy groceries. You don't suppress it. Suppression creates tension. You capture it. Keep a sheet of paper titled Later. When the lateral thought appears, you write it in one line on the later sheet, and you immediately return to the active cycle. Ford blocked distractions on the assembly line with physical layout, tools within arm's reach, parts delivered exactly when needed. No wandering, no searching. You do the same with attention. One point, one cycle, everything else gets captured and cued. Step 3, execute until you hit the natural stopping point. This is critical. The natural stopping point is not when you're tired. It's not when you're bored. It's not when it gets difficult. The natural stopping point is when the cycle is complete. Proposal sent, claim resolved, conversation concluded, code reviewed and merged. If you stop before completion, you've created another open loop, another piece of work in progress, another source of mental load. Ford's assembly line had clear completion criteria for each station. Bolt torqued to specification, panel aligned within tolerance, inspection stamp applied. You need the same. What does complete look like for this cycle? Define it before you start, then execute until you reach it. Step 4. Close the cycle before opening another. You don't immediately jump to the next task. You take 60 seconds to close the loop consciously. This can be as simple as writing cycle complete and the timestamp. It can be checking the item off a list with a physical pen. It can be closing the relevant files and applications. The point is to create a mental boundary. This cycle is done. My mind is no longer allocated here. Now I can open space for the next point. Without this boundary, your mind keeps one foot in the previous cycle while trying to start the new one. That's how you end up with 6 half-finished loops by noon. Step 5. Review the later sheet only after the primary cycle is complete. Remember all those lateral thoughts you captured. Now you review them. Most of them will be irrelevant by now. Some will still matter. Pick one. If it can become tomorrow's cycle, you schedule it. If it's a 2-minute task, you complete it now while your mind has open capacity. If it's someone else's responsibility, you delegate it immediately. The later sheet prevents loss of important thoughts while protecting the active cycle from interruption. It's a buffer. Ford used buffers in inventory management. Small, controlled, serving a specific purpose, not chaos. Not unlimited work in progress. Controlled queue. Real example. In 1913, Ford reduced Model T assembly time from 12 hours and 28 minutes to 93 minutes. How? Each worker, one task, one complete cycle before the chassis moved to the next station. Worker 1 installed the engine mounts. Cycle complete. Worker 2 lowered the engine block. Cycle complete. Worker 3 connected the drive shaft. Cycle complete. He didn't ask workers to do their best. He didn't motivate them with speeches. He eliminated structural dispersion. The work itself became less mentally taxing because each man knew exactly what complete looked like, and he achieved it 30 times per day. Completion generates momentum. Momentum generates satisfaction. Satisfaction reduces suffering. Now let's talk about what happens when you don't follow this protocol. You end the day exhausted but unable to point to what you actually completed. You lie in bed and your mind is still running all 6 loops. You can't sleep because you have no closure. You wake up the next day and add 3 more loops to the existing 6. By Friday, you're running 12 loops. None complete, all generating low-level anxiety. By the end of the month, you're burned out, not because you worked too hard, because you worked inefficiently. Your mental factory is running at 8% throughput, 92% waste. That waste manifests as stress, anxiety, irritability, decision fatigue, and the feeling that you're always behind. You're not behind. Your system is broken. Here's what changes when you implement 1 cycle per day. Day 1. You complete the client proposal. Your mind closes that loop. That evening, you don't think about the proposal. It's done. Day 2. You resolve the insurance claim. Loop closed. Day 3. You have the boundary conversation. Loop closed. By day 7, you've closed 7 loops. Your mental load hasn't increased. It's decreased. You're carrying less. You're sleeping better. You're making decisions faster. Why? Because you're not managing 12 open loops. You're managing 1 active cycle and 0 open loops from previous days. This is operational clarity. This is what Ford meant when he talked about efficiency. It's not about working faster. It's about eliminating waste. Henry Ford said, "There is no man living who cannot do more than he thinks he can." But he didn't say this to motivate. He said it because he eliminated the waste that prevented man from executing. Your mind suffers because it's wasting capacity at multiple points, none completed. The solution isn't more effort. The solution isn't positive thinking. The solution isn't a new productivity app. The solution is better allocation. 1 mind, 1 point, 1 cycle, complete before moving. If you apply this protocol for the next 30 days, 1 cycle per day, 0 dispersion, you will feel the operational difference. Not on day 1. Probably not on day 3, but by day 10, you'll notice you're sleeping better. By day 20, you'll notice you're less reactive. By day 30, you'll look back and count 30 completed cycles instead of 90 half-finished attempts. It's not magic, it's engineering. And if you want to deepen this type of applied thinking, there's more content on the channel. But start with the obvious. Put your mind in the right place. Give it 1 cycle. Protect that cycle from interruption. Execute until complete. Close the loop. Then, and only then, open the next one. Your mind is a factory. Run it like